Welcome to 10 Career Questions. My name is Kevin Appnel, and I'm the Executive Director of the York County Alliance for Learning. This video is part of a series of interviews where we speak to various professionals working within each of the 16 nationally recognized career clusters. The purpose of this series is to get to know people working within each career cluster and to help promote a better understanding of various career paths. Resources like this video are intended to help promote career awareness and career exploration as students move closer to making important career decisions. Today, we'll be speaking to someone in the Education and Training career cluster. This career cluster is focused on planning, managing, and providing education and training services and related learning support services. Today's interview is being presented by York College of Pennsylvania, and we sincerely thank them for their support.
All right, well, thank you for being here today. Welcome to 10 Questions. We'll hop right in. Question number one, what's your name and who do you work for?
Hi, I'm Melissa Appnel. I work for the West York Area School District.
All right, next question is, what is your job title and what do you do?
So I am the Director of Education and Assessment, K-12. So here in the district, the short of it is I make sure teachers have what they need to effectively educate our kids. I investigate programs, help support our departments in innovation, new program development, and ultimately, all of my work stems around the focus of the student experience. How do we make sure kids are having the best learning experience we can possibly provide them in meaningful and relevant ways?
Great. Now, a lot of people watching this are pretty familiar with education because they're currently in school, but could you just describe the industry that you work in? I know that might be a little tough to do.
Sure. Well, education from ages 5 to 18, sometimes 19 and 20. But so public education, but we also have departments that really focus and develop on human services, social services. In my role, in addition to education, training our teachers, it's also a lot of communications, marketing, and then of course instruction.
Great. So how long have you worked in education and what are some of the past roles or past job titles that you've had before you've made it to your current position?
Sure. So I've been a proud Bulldog since 2003. I started as a fifth grade teacher, taught fifth grade for several years. I was an elementary administrator here in the district. If I go all the way back, I student taught here in West York as well. So I'm proud to say I'm homegrown here, following my degree from York College of Pennsylvania, who I understand is sponsoring this chat. But so fifth grade, I was also a technology coach and supporter in my building when I was a classroom teacher. So I helped coach my colleagues in effective uses of technology back in 2003 to 2007. During that time, I was also a volleyball coach. So got to work with my elementary kids, got to work with some high school kids along the way, and then was an elementary assistant principal of an elementary building. And in 2017, I joined the central office administration team here working on curriculum and instruction and assessment K-12. So my hands have been in a lot of different areas, but it's been awesome.
That's great. So to get to where you are now, what kind of training or education have you gotten along the way to get to where you are now?
I started working with kids early. When I was in high school, I worked for my local recreation and parks department. And then in college, I was able to substitute teach for several years. I grew up in Maryland. So in Maryland at the time, you did not need a teaching certification to substitute teach. You needed a high school diploma. Like, you got paid better if you had a college certification, but I saw opportunities to get in classrooms as much as I could. So I knew at an early age I wanted to be an educator. So I took every advantage I could or opportunity to get in classrooms, and then participated in my undergraduate with York College of Pennsylvania. I went there as a secondary math major and ended up graduating an elementary major with a focus on mathematics. Then once I started teaching, I began a master's program in educational administration. That was through Temple. And then while I was a principal, I started a ed leadership program through Shippensburg. So currently I have a elementary education certification And then I needed to get a principal certification to be an administrator. And I can do my job now with that certification, but I also have my superintendent's letter of eligibility if I would ever hope to move forward here over in central office. But I'll tell you, my seat right now is amazing. Getting to work with K-12 teachers, focusing on the K-12 students and all of their experiences, and really focusing on the instruction in the classroom.
That's great. And I learned something. I didn't realize that you were subbing in Maryland and that you're allowed to do that without a degree. So I learned something today, and that's great.
I mean, that was back in 2002, 2001. But,
some of the people watching this weren't born then. You don't need to mention those
oh,
years, please.
Babies, okay.
What are some a lot of times we talk about soft skills and how important those are to being successful in a certain career. So what are some personality traits or some characteristics that you think are going to be needed for someone to be successful in this type of career?
Well, I'm imagining people are watching this potentially from their classroom, potentially from home. Flexibility is huge, especially right now, knowing at any time the show must go on. We have to be able to educate our kids. And speaking specifically to the pandemic, the work that we saw our teachers pull together from March to the summer, the work they did over summer preparing for who knows what, and then preparing for students to return this year, knowing they might be in their classrooms, they might be at home, and how do we still make sure they're learning? Because talking to kids doesn't always necessitate like learning. We need to create those experiences. So we must have flexibility. Organized, we look for risk takers, we look for problem solvers. It's great if you know your content and you're passionate about a certain subject, but if you don't have the ability to be flexible, organized, try something new, and even being willing to sell, like, okay, this might be tough, but when the kids get in front of me, they can't know that this is new for me. This is something that we're all working through together. So being able to encourage and, coach, as well as have passion for your subject or matter or age group.
Great. Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. This video in and of itself is just an exercise in trying to be flexible because the learning has to continue and the show has to go on. So yeah, I keep saying our word of the year is flexibility, and that's what we're going to do all the time. So that's great. So here's a good question. What is the next one? What is the best part about your job?
Oh my gosh.
And by the way, you can, sorry, not to interrupt, but before you can certainly talk about your job or just the job of a teacher in general. So
well, today I'll just say it's Thanksgiving dinner in all of our cafeterias, and that is like the best lunch ever. So getting to continue to participate in that is pretty amazing. But I get to continue to, I love learning. I like trying new things. Sometimes like I try it, oh, I don't like that, I move on to something else. But being able to continue to educate myself as well as others is awesome. Getting to work with teachers who love what they do and are looking for the best experience for kids is awesome. I love the novelty of my day, knowing that, every day what teachers bring to the table is going to be different. Every day what comes through when the phone rings is going to be different. When I was in the classroom, I had my lesson plan, but every day was different. Like the lesson plan is written on paper. The students who walk in your door are not. So being able to react and jump on a teachable moment it's fun. When I was building principal, every day was different. You planned as much as you could, but there was still variety, which is very stimulating for me. I like working through those things and problem solving and troubleshooting. I get to work with key stakeholders in the community, my board, all to make sure that kids get opportunities to try new things and think beyond headlines. My why is the best possible learning experience for kids. And what's amazing for me, being a parent in the district that I work in as well, every decision I make will somehow impact the learning of my kids, and knowing that if it's good enough for other people's kids, it has to be good enough for mine. So we're constantly bringing our best to make sure that every kid's getting the best possible experience and learning, not just answers, but how to problem solve and be creative themselves. So
That's great.
I love my job. Can
I
I
would
say
say
that? I love my
that's a
job.
lot. That's a lot, and I'm not at all surprised that you just said a lot is what's the best part of your job. So, well, I have to flip the script a little bit here because our next question is going to be, what's the most challenging part about your job? And again, or feel free to, for those that are, a lot of the people that be watching this would be potentially aspiring teachers, and of course they would be classroom teachers probably as they start their careers. So feel free to answer as to what would be the most challenging part of just being a teacher in general.
Most challenging part of my job is constantly like funding. And I mean, I'm not going to get on any soapboxes about that, but funding is a huge issue. But as a teacher, I think the hardest part is public perceptions, because education is where everyone has spent at least 13 years watching someone else do it. And it's this 13-year informal internship, if you will, because you've had good experiences. Hopefully you haven't had too many bad experiences, but you've had them. And so have our students' families. So what they don't get to see are the behind the scenes and the real work of teaching, the amount of work that goes into what happens before kids walk into the classroom. And that's what people don't get to see. The research or trends on like what's the return on investment of time and energy. Like when you've probably heard or seen complaints about, oh, this new math. When I learned math, I learned answers. How do you get the answer? I memorized facts, and I'll say we learned this butterfly method to divide fractions. The rhyme was literally, don't ask why, just invert and multiply. And that got me the answer. But I was 37 years old when I learned why that works in one of our middle school classrooms, because we were teaching the why. And that's the stuff that will make some folks pull their hair out because they feel like they can't support their kids at home. So one of the big challenges is how do we continue to educate our families on the why we teach the way we do, the importance of teaching kids how to think, problem solve, and learn. I think that's a huge challenge, because the trends and what we're seeing is that's how students actually learn the concepts versus just memorize a way to get an answer. And then they can take that heavy thinking and apply it to many other things outside of math. So that's one example, but yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into it that people don't get to see, and everyone thinks they know.
And was that mostly for you in your position, or was that just a teachers in general?
I think that's teachers in general.
Okay.
You know, if I stay focused and tuned into math, our middle school teachers, every year, they're re-educating families, because, you know, we had a big rollout of our math curriculum, and then the next year, well, those are new families that haven't experienced it before. So we have to continue to educate them and continue to show them the how and the why things are presented in the way that they are, to help teach kids to think and problem solve. So it's kind of a never-ending education stream, not only for our kids, but for our families. And I mean, I think our teachers do a great job of supporting our parents and how to support their kids. But we've seen the social media posts of my kid's doing it this way and I can do it that way. All right, but your kid can explain why that works. And that's what we want them to be able to do.
Well, I can attest as the untrained educator in the room during conferences that they certainly do a good job of explaining it to those of us that maybe don't have the formal 4 or 6 year degree plus a certification. So
Yeah.
no, that's great. So again, for an aspiring educator, what's the career outlook look like in this industry for let's just say your industry of public education? What do you think in the next 1 to 5 years, maybe even beyond 5 years, for those that might be earlier in their high school career and watching this, or do you think there'll be jobs for teachers coming out in the next few years?
Yes.
All right, next question. No, I'm just kidding. No.
We will always need teachers. There's a big availability, I'll say, of online programs, and they all have their place. But ultimately, I'm going to challenge anyone watching this video. What was the last thing you learned? What did you have to teach yourself to do, or the last thing that you learned? And think back to the emotion you felt when you accomplished it or failed and had to try again. Like, learning is tied to emotion, and we need people who are able to create experiences where kids laugh through their learning, get frustrated through their learning, and then persevere and accomplish it. That is something I think that is maximized through person-to-person connection. And we need people in classrooms to be able to do that.
All right. So job outlook, pretty good, pretty decent job security, you think, in the upcoming years?
I think so. There's also waves. I wish I had
That's okay.
the numbers. But in the next, I want to say in the next 10 years, they're anticipating 20% turnover, just in terms of waves of retirements and certifications that were printed 25 years ago. So I will say there's always waves, but I'll say also not to be discouraged, because there is a huge also need for substitute teachers. And I'll tell you what, we pay attention. If we have a substitute teacher that we love, that shows up for us, does a great job, they are on the short list when contracts become available.
Right, for a full-time position.
For a full-time, yes, for a full-time position.
Yeah, I wish I had the number as well, but I know about a year ago, I read a statistic that was the number of retirees in Pennsylvania from the education system in a year versus the amount of licenses that were given, teaching licenses that were given, certifications. And it was a deficit. Like, it was going in the wrong direction, that we were losing teachers. So, certainly, at least, like you said, it goes in waves, but certainly in the near future, it looks like there's going to be plenty of jobs available. So we're on to our final question. This sort of gets to be your swan song here. What's the one piece of advice that you would give a high school student who might be looking to get into this industry? I know you've given a lot of advice so far, but if you could kind of summarize it and capture it into one thing, what would that be?
What I will say, in education, you don't get to choose who you work with, right? Your kids are coming in from all different backgrounds, all different dynamics. You're working with their kids, you're working with their parents. So for a high school student, I will say, get used to talking to people that aren't in your circle, who think differently from you. You have to be able to work with people beyond that circle and understand where they're coming from in order to best support them. There's no one size fits all in any aspect of this job. So I would encourage future educators to try things outside of your comfort zone and continue to grow and evolve as a person yourself, so that you are the best and most understanding person for the students that will later walk through your door.
Great. Well, Melissa, thank you for joining us today. I'm very proud of you. I'll just say that.
Thanks.
Just as an interviewer for the York County Alliance for Learning, I'm very proud of all your accomplishments and everything you've done. But thank you for being here with everyone today, and for doing this video to hopefully help some future educators get a little bit better connected with what it means to be an educator in the future. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if anyone has any questions or wants any other follow-up, please just send them my way. I'd love to talk to future educators.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks.
Bye.